Welcome to the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. Make it hit as we go from the gun. The kick-off here is critical. So, our riders set off from that start line. Vink there, Moreno Graves is right in the mix. 5 minutes now. Onto the climb here. We're into the gradients. We're seeing big numbers start to come up. They'll go into the orange and into the red. Vink leading. The chase behind is coming now. SS. Look at those. I just saw 128 revs per minute, 135. He's absolutely spinning out here.
The average gradient on this climb is over 6%. So it is a really steep climb, even though we're seeing steps.
Yep, so a high average at over 6%. The chasers at the moment at 7.7, now into the red at 8.2. Revs per minute, he's down to 62. Come on, Michael. Come on, mate. This is where you've got to make it count. He's currently moving. He's up 40.5k. He's got to stay clear of the chase. He's lost 4 seconds. It's coming down is the gap. Mr. X100 is leading the chase behind here. Jones is still in the mix. Nair is in the mix. Vujasin in the mix. Less than 500 meters to go for Vink. But Ollie Jones can see the tunnel entrance that we've just seen Vink go through. That time gap is coming down. 100 meters to go as they come into the finish. Michael Vink, he's gonna get it. It's Michael Vink takes first place. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It is prize money race number 3 for July, and it is prize as the 30th. We are going to be seeing who is going to take that away here on the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. We have an amazing course for you, and as you can see, we have our new course profile, which includes a much more graphic representation of what the climbs are doing. I'm joined here by Emma, who is going to be bringing us a lot of the stats and the details. So Emma, welcome, and good to have you on the show once again. Tough course.
It's great to be back, Matt. And yes, indeed, it is a tough course. And looking at that profile today, our riders are going to see 4 climbs on the course today. A number of them get to one. So we second climb being a category 4 climb today, and our final climb category 2.
And taking on that course today, we have the top teams in category 1, the UAE clan team, never out of the top 2, 3 wins and a second place in our qualifying rounds. We have the Yorkshire Pudding Express, 2 third places on the way through, but don't let that fool you. They could well be in for the win this time around. And the Danish Clover Squad with the 1st and 2nd place, bringing up the 3rd spot in our team categories. And the Belgian Waffle Squad, again, 2nd place in one of our qualifying rounds. So all 4 teams could score. Don't forget, of course, we do have some individual riders in there as well, but expect the big action at the front of the race to come from those teams. The UAE clan team, will it be Popovic or Mr. X100? Maybe say Safrazad, who's going to take that? Well, all the rest of the teams are going to try and challenge. And in that mix, of course, we have our category 2 teams. The category 2 teams, some very strong teams in here. The Climbers team have been 2nd in the team category overall. They've been absolutely flying first in the squads that have come through, but watch out for Team Italy B. They've got a strong squad here today. Don't forget, of course, UAE Falcons, the Royal Riders in there as well. X-Pro have been riding strongly. 210 in the teams, a 4th place, their highest spot at the moment. But Cycle Zone 1 as well, looking really, really strong. Hubbards are in there. It's going to be interesting to see what they can do this time around, see whether they're going to pull themselves further up the standings. But it could well be that we're going to see a surprise from one of the teams maybe that haven't figured before, maybe just holding, keeping their powder dry. But the prize money final, big prize money, big results required. Today's the day to make it count. If you can't pull it out today, well, then maybe all of that riding and racing in our 4 great qualifiers is going to come to nothing. If you didn't watch them, make sure you go back and watch them. Our category 2 riders have been mixing it up with the leaders time and time again. And it's going to be really interesting to see whether or not they can do that this time around. Join me, 3 rider. Remember, of course, our categories are dynamic. So category 1, 2, and 3 are all going to be making the way on to that start line very shortly indeed. So let's see just how these riders progress in the categories, it's going to be a very, very interesting to see whether or not we are moving through smoothly, or whether, of course, our riders are jammed up on the start line. Our category 2 riders, well, I think that's the toughest category to be in, don't you think, Emma?
I do. It is. It's a really, really packed and race team today.
Well, our category 3 riders, it's going to be interesting to see what they can do, because they are a category below, and I think we are going to see a real battle here. Now, in terms of team competition, the Renegades are the team to beat, and they've got in there Valencia, Orego, Camicho Gay, and Restrepo. But you've got to watch out for, and the riders I think who are going to figure today are from the Warrior men team, the Londanos, Jefferson and Julian. When they have ridden, they have not been top 3 riders, and you've got a win for Jefferson, 2 wins for Julian. I think they could be tough to beat, but watch out for the Strikers, the Road Warriors, and the CZ3 team. They've got riders who can be up there with Mendoza, a third, and a 4th place in that category race. We do have Andres Duque in there as well. He's been top 3, 2nd place in the first qualifying round. I think that category 3, Emma, is a little bit interesting, isn't it?
It is. In fact, all of our categories, I think, are going to see some great racing today. So for those just joining us, let's just do a quick reminder, Matt, because the jerseys each of these 3 categories are wearing are different today. Category 3 are in blue, category 2 are in green, and category 1 are in yellow.
So looking at this course, I think the profile shows that we're going to get a very quick start off from the line, because it's relatively flat to 2K, but then we go into the hills, and that's going to affect the tactics, isn't it, Emma?
It is. So we've got a 5K race distance today with 814 meters of climb, and that climb, as you can see from the screen in front of you, is split into 4 main climbs with a little bit of rolling terrain in between. One category 4 climb coming up as climb 2, and one category 2 climb at the end of the race today. And that, I think, is where we're going to see the real decider made today, Matt, around the race and who comes over the line first.
So that's going to be really interesting. And that final climb, it is very steppy, isn't it? It's got that steep rise and a leveling, a steep rise and a leveling. And our riders are going to have to hit that, but this start critical into countdown. We are on 30 seconds, just another 30 seconds to go. And the riders are going to be winding this up, really starting to push on here as soon as that gang goes. We're in with Hassan now at the moment with our category 2 riders. Hassan, a very strong rider. The question will be, can he make it count here today? Because he really does need to push from the start. The countdown is on. Saeed Safrazad in here, and it's going to be key for the UAE clan team if they want to defend that lead, to get off from the start. The go-goes, as the saying is, and away we are. Saeed just having to through the back of the bunch up at the front. Hassan got a great start there, very quickly away. Mr. X100 right up in the mix. Stefan Van East in there. Mitch Ferry, Daniel Cross, Pablo Popovic. Looks like these riders really are motoring along and are moving at some pace today. And you can see, I think this is going to be an aggressive race. In the qualifiers, it's about getting a good rider in that is very fast. But once we get into the prize money final, we tend to see a more aggressive race from some of our teams, trying to take the action to the SS team, because that SS team, for a team of SS in the UAE clan team, that is the team that really does need to keep this absolutely nailed. So we're just in with Mr. X100, just watching as he pushes his way into of this group. He's in that leading group, but at the moment, this pack is all together, pretty much 1 or 2 riders at the back, and you can see the top right-hand side of your screen. Those dots represent our riders. So the yellow dots are the category 1, the green category 2, and the blue category 3. And as we can see, Phil Graves quickly up onto the front of this race. But because it's a flat start, those riders who can get into the draft and save energy are really interesting to see this as they move onwards here. So the riders continue to push onwards. We are just going to check these riders. And it looks to me like Hassan just at the back of the pack on the left-hand side of your screen. On the right-hand side of the screen, just coming up, you can see our race leaders, Phil Graves, Saeed Safrazad, Mitch Ferry in there. It looks like Cutler right on the heels as well. And you can see from Hassan's point of view on the left of your screen, Those leaders in front are pushing, and the riders behind are really having to work. The pressure is coming on, though, and really interestingly, the pressure is coming on from the Yorkshire Pudding Express in the shape of Ferry and Cutler and Grays, doing a lot of the work up on the front to break this up. Just having a little look through these names, seeing Ollie Jones in here. Jones, one of our regular race winners. Ollie Jones taking the victory in qualifier number 2, second place last week in qualifier number 1, a 4th place in qualifier 1. And already things are very, very interesting indeed. Now, we just seeing the riders continue to push to see if they've can keep that gap closed down. And we are just into our very first segment start. And segments, Emma, they're timed individually, aren't they?
They are, Matt, and there are 7 segments today on the course that we are going to watch this race. So the first 3 segments today are 1K, and then we've got 1 by 3K segment, 1 3.5K segment, and then finally the last 2 are at 5K. So each of these segments will get longer in length as the race progresses, and they are over different terrain as well, which will see different times come through. But this time segment that the riders are going through at the moment is between 2 and 3K on this course, so very early, and we can see the groups moving through what is pretty much a gently uphill segment today.
So gently rising segment. I'm not sure their legs are going to say it is a gentle rise as they go up through here. But at the moment, you can see the initial kick. I think we're going to have about 12 to 15 riders going clear from Hassan's view on the left to the view of our leaders on the front. You can see a lot of our green jerseys all together on the left, but now on the main screen are in this group, and a real mix of riders. Good to see Vujassin is in here. Now, in terms of teams, the Yorkshire Pudding Express represented by Mitch Ferry, Tim Cutler, Phil Grace, and Lionel Vujassin. This is going to be really, really interesting indeed, and I'll ride us through that segment very, very quickly indeed. Emma, bring us the scores on the first segment.
Yeah, so Vujassin from the Yorkshire Pudding Express goes through in first place on that segment with a 120, an average of 7.3 watts per kilo. So absolutely nailing that section, with Ollie Jones in second from the Danish Pavlova and his teammate Michael Fink in third.
Well, some really interesting results on there. And looking down those names and the power there, Emma, I think we can see that the teams that really are wanting to mix this up. 3 Yorkshire Pudding Express in there, 3 riders from the Danish Pavlova squad, the UAE clan team, of course, represented. And they're incredibly strong as we see Mr. X100 moving up on to the front. But they are the team that everybody knows have got to beat.
They are. And I think the teams, as we can see from the results of that first segment, are really thinking about what they're doing today and packing really heavily into these groups.
And that is really interesting to see, isn't it? This is the riders really continuing to push, really are opening up those gaps at the moment behind to the chasers. On the top right-hand side of your screen, you can see that there is nothing to choose between these riders. One blob, one dot in yellow on the screen. Behind them, there is nothing but fresh air. There's a long gap now to the chasers behind. So just keeping a check on these riders. And it certainly looks to me like they are going to be putting the pressure on and distancing the riders in the green. They are the riders from the second category race, and some really strong riders in here. Good to see Liam Somerville in here. Somerville riding for the DS team, a rider who's regularly rolling around the top of 10 positions. He'll be wanting to push up. Mr. G is in here as well for the Climbers squad, who we're riding with at the moment. In terms of big names in here, we'll see who's going to take this overall. Watch out for the riders who are going to be trying to take this away. I think we've got to watch out for Moreno, regularly top 2. The Team Italy B riders are very, very strong. You just see Johan Moreno now coming at the bottom of the screen, ticking through there as we go back to our race leaders. So the race leaders in very, very close indeed. And you can see nothing here really to choose. Not actually kicking on too much at the moment. And I think there's a little bit of care being taken. Phil Grace, we're seeing 5, 6, and 7 watts per kilo, and those watts per kilo are critical to what's going on.
They are, and not just watts per kilo, but momentum is really important here, and cadence is another thing to really keep your eye on, because the way this course rides, it's not just about the power you can put out, it's about how and where you use that power and how you can use momentum on this rolling course to the best of your ability.
At the moment, Tim Cutler is a rider who needs to take that momentum with him, because at the moment it shows that he is in a deficit. He is behind the riders as we go into our next segment. So this will record discreetly. So basically, each of those segments, rather than being part of the whole race, they show it individually. And Tim Cutler is now having to chase, and this is going to be a problem for the Yorkshire Pudding Express. Tim Cutler has been very, very strong in all the races, and you can see those numbers. He's pushing 6.6 watts per kilo at the moment as he continues to push up. This is going to be really, really tough stuff. Let's see how he is moving and whether or not he can squeeze his way in and through to that lead group. The group are in front. You can just see them on the left-hand side of the screen at the top. He's just trying to push to get that gap back down again. It's only fractions of a second that he needs to gain back at a time. But Vink on the front is putting down some power here, and the Pavlova squad are trying, I think, to distance the Yorkshire Pudding Express rider. Remember, our riders are riding for prize money today. They qualify in qualifying rounds 1, 2, 3, and 4. The best two qualifying rounds, you've got to get through 2 to qualify, and this is going to be key. So our riders are about to come to the end of segment number 2, and when they do so, we'll get a good indication of just how far behind Cutler is. Here we go. The screens are coming up, and it looks like Mitch Ferry leading. Take us through it, Emma.
Yeah, so look at that. We've got Mitch Ferry of the Yorkshire Pudding Express there coming through in a 1:15. Let's remember, this is a 1K segment as well, but this one goes downhill, whereas our other one went uphill, and you can see that replicated in the watts and the faster time. So less watts, faster time, downhill. Michael Vink from Danish Pavlovas, Knudsen from Danish Pavlovas in third. Again, Yorkshire Pudding Express in fourth. Belgian Waffles, Stefan van Elst in fifth. Yorkshire Pudding Express rounding out the team there with Philip Graves in sixth. So the teams, not as well as the individuals here, really putting in some good racing.
They are indeed, and we just seeing these riders go through. I think Emma's going to try and dive through the results, get a little look and see how Cutler is doing on that time check on his own. One of the key things is to stay in the draft, to try and sit with the other riders and sit behind the other riders. You don't want to be the rider who is having a hard time on your own. You want to be able to shelter. You want to be able to take the advantage of drafting behind another rider. And on the screens, top left-hand side of each of our screens, you can just see it's all about the watts. Now, we're looking at these riders. I think the gap has opened up. Tim Cutler's currently on 7.3K. We've got 7.5K for our race leaders, including Phil Graves. And Graves, a teammate of Cutler, may well have been told that Cutler's not on it today. He's not on the back of that group. He's not made the junction, so time to start racing without him. Remember, when we get to our team results, it is the top 3 riders in each team. So an update on those times for Tim, Emma.
Yeah, so Tim Cutler's just come through that segment in 14th place. So 2.5 seconds down on the lead group. So he's not closing over that K. He's actually getting distanced.
Well, that really does show that he is having a tough time. He's got to keep pushing, though, because we do see the group sit up, and it's going to depend on the dynamics. If you look at the group on the right-hand side of your screen, they are about 4 or 5 riders wide. They're not one long, thin line. They are spread out across the road, and just like you would see a road on the track, when the group is spread out, it means that they're not sheltering as much. There's more people just able to stay at that pace. Tim Cutler doesn't have that luxury. He's on his own. There's nobody's up him. He really is pushing on, and he's keeping a high average pace. And the one thing to his advantage is he can keep that pace steady. He can sit and ride at his limit without getting pushed over it. And when you get pushed over it, and once you go into that red zone, it takes a lot of time to recover. And it does vary rider per rider, but most people will take enough time to recover that they will be lost and there'll be distance and it'll be game over. Now, Tim has to sit at that steady pace, and all he can hope is that his average pace that he can just hold right on the limit is greater than the average pace of the group, who might be speeding up, attacking and slowing and attacking and slowing. And that really can actually bring your average down. Occasionally it brings it up, but usually it is about bringing it down. Now, just having a little look into our next segment we go. So we are absolutely rocketing through those segments. So segment 1, 2, and 3, 1K long. Segment 4, 3K. 5 is 3.5. 6 is a 5K, as is segment 7. Each of those segments timed individually, and you can see in our leaders that group is minimal. 13 riders in the leading group being chased by a solo rider behind, Tim Cutler. So here on MyWhoosh, on the Sunday Race Club with me and Matt Payne and with Emma Martin here today, bringing you all of the action with the team at MyWhoosh. We have got some amazing action already. We've seen Tim Cutler, a man who we know can be right up in the mix, being distance, and the riders in his team not able to wait for him. They're having to answer the moves on the front, and the UAE clan team, who have been quiet over sectors 2, and that segment coming in, now starting to wind it up and really are starting to try and power the way up and put the pressure on, put the pace on, and start to distance the riders behind. So you do see this. The teams will do a regroup, they'll talk to each other, and they're going to be on Discord. And Emma, as you're coming up to this segment number 3, I think a quick roundup of the times as they come through, but also maybe give us an insight into sort of the conversation you might have on something like a Discord server, or how do you talk to each other, and what do you try and say to each other?
Yeah, so normally you would expect a team to have had a conversation pre-race so that they have a race plan, and actually it's about executing that race plan and being able to change on the road, so to speak, if things aren't quite going as you'd wanted to execute. But coming through that segment now, that segment was pretty much of a flat segment. And again, our final 1K segment, but we're seeing some real changes here on the front in terms of rolling through that front group. So a 121 from Mr. X100 leading that through for the UAE clan team. Belgian Waffles, Van Elst, Saeed Zafari, UAE clan team. Yorkshire Pudding, Mitch Ferry in 4th. Yorkshire Pudding Express, Phil Graves in 5th. And then we're seeing another UAE clan team, SS in 6th. So this really is not just an individual race, but it's really, really interesting to see how these teams are playing it.
It is indeed. And I think as these teams work through the race, we're going to see those team numbers whittling down. Remember, those prices in that team competition go a long way down through the rankings, and that makes a difference, doesn't it, into how our riders will play that and into just how hard they work. And those teams at the moment, we see Michael Vick on the attack here. The Danish Pavlova squad have been aggressive. Fink, Knudsen, Jones, they want to take this race to the UAE clan team. Saeed Safrazad comes across and marks out the break here. So a break of Fink, of Graves, and Safrazad coming onto the wheel here. This is a dangerous move if it stayed away. If it just had Fink and Graves, that is for the UAE clan team. But if they take Saeed Safrazad with them, they are taking up a rider from that UAE clan team, and that is going to make a big difference. So let's see how this rolls. I think personally we are going to have a real fight on here. SS trying to come across this gap. I think he's trying to tow across Mr. X100, his teammate on that UAE clan team. And this is why that UAE clan team are so hard to beat on here, because they have strength in depth in all of their riders. Mr. X100 on that bunch now. I think that's Ollie Jones who's just come rocketed across. He's powered his way up there at 12.5 watts per kilo. That is a massive, massive power. Look at the watts coming out. We'll sit over 600 here for SS, but I saw 12 watts per kilo coming out for Jones. And I think what's happened is that the bunch weren't bringing back the leaders, and all of a sudden that's a massive kick. Now, watts per kilo, we talked about this, about the numbers of watts per kilo, Emma. That's a lot of power.
It is a huge amount of power. Yeah, so watts versus weight becomes watts per kilo. And kicking out 6, 7, 10, 11, 12, really, really big power bursts going in there to try and break this group now at around 12K of racing done.
Well, 12K of racing is absolutely flown by already. See, we're at 12 kilometers. Our riders continue to push, and the group is breaking. Graves on the front with Vink, with Jones, with SS behind. We have, with Vink, Graves, and Jones leading three that you see on the screen. Then it's SS. And Mr. X100, Michael Knudsen, Pablo Popovic, Stefan Van Eest, Lionel Vajassin in there. It looks to me like we are just starting to see a bit of a regroup here. There's only a couple of seconds really separating all this group. And it may well be, as we come through our next segment, we get an indication of who's been working hard to do that, because your heart rate really is a good indicator of how hard you are working. It's not going to give you necessarily how much power you produce. That is the watts that come out, and at the moment, some phenomenal watts. Let's see who's going to be working hard as we come out of the other side of this segment now. Saeed Safrazad at the moment, I think, is the rider in trouble here. He's in 13th place, and I think Saeed has now been distanced. He tried to go with the leaders. We're just going to double check. Yep, looks like he has been distanced here 25 seconds now. We saw Saeed Safrazad go up into that leading group, trying to go with that leading duo. I think he pushed himself into the red zone, and that has caused him problems. He's out of the back of the group now, and that is because he went too hard, too deep. And we talked about it earlier. You go into the red zone, that recovery can take a long time. And that is, I think, what's caused the problems there. Saeed's has gone out of the back of the group, but he will keep riding because that UAE clan team, they know that anything can happen between here and the finish. There's a lot of road to cover here on MyWhoosh. So here on MyWhoosh, 13.3K covered. We are at about 18 minutes of racing. We're in with Mr. X100, who is sitting in the draft when it's in green. Now moving across to Michael Knudsen. Knudsen in that leading group. And I think we're going to see the leaders on the right, the chaser behind that is Saeed Safrazad on the left. And interestingly, Oliver Simmons, who arrives for the Belgian Waffle Squad, he'll be their fourth counter. Distance from the lead group. You've got Saeed Safrazad, distance from that lead group. Tim Cutler, distance from that lead group. Three riders, three different teams. The UAE clan team, the Yorkshire Pudding Express, and the Belgian Waffles, losing riders from the leading group because of the pace that is being set on the front. Saeed Safrazad is not giving up, though. 161 beats per minute at the moment, currently doing nearly 400 watts, 450 watts at the moment. So he is pushing on. He's not going to give up here. He's going to keep on trying to get back into that group and minimize the distance, because you can lose a lot of time or gain a lot of time as you go up these climbs. So our riders at the moment approaching the 14-kilometer marker, and you can just see at the moment these riders are continuing to push as they come in towards the gorge and start to come around this right-hand bend. I'm just looking at the screens for the difference between the two riders, and you can just see on the distance marker, it's about 1 kilometer between them. So that's going to be a pretty insurmountable gap unless something drastic happens here. Now, the riders come around this turn. It's slightly downhill at coming into 15K. But we've got to remember the big kickers that come, particularly at the end of this course, are what are going to decide the race. So our riders at the moment at 14.7 kilometers. They're into segment number 4, a longer segment here, and this will give us a really good indication across a variety of terrain, not just downhill, but also uphill sections as well. And this is a real mix. Now, let's just jump across to our second category riders on the left-hand side of your screen. This is an amazing race. The second category is so close to, it's very difficult to call, not just our individual riders, but also in terms of the team win, because it's probably almost just as competitive, if not more so, than the top category ever. And you've been watching the segment times. They put some very fast times.
They have. And, there's nearly double the number of riders in the Category 2 race today as we've got in our Category 1 race. And you can see that lead group in the Category 2 race is still a really large pack of what looks to be around 20 riders.
It is indeed, but our leaders coming in to the end of this segment. So let's see what those time gaps are. The Belgian Waffle Squad look to be represented up at the top, but for me, the big thing here, look at those team names. Emma, bring us some insight.
Yeah, this I think is a story of which teams have got riders in the right place and who's made the cut to that front group. So Van Elst is the fastest time through that 3K segment of 3:47, but hot on the hills and very close is that front group. So we've got Popovic from the UAE clan team in second, Mr. X100 from the UAE clan team in third, SS from the UAE clan team in fourth, Philip Graves from Yorkshire Pudding Express in fifth, Ollie Jones in Danish Pavlova, Michael Vink in seventh, Danish Pavlova, Michael Knudsen in eighth, Danish Pavlova, and Saeed Safrazad in ninth from the UAE clan team.
But our leading group now consists of 8 riders: Van Ace, Popovic, Mr. X100, SS, Graves, Jones, Vink, and Knudsen. 3 Danish Pavlova, 3 UAE Clan Team, 1 Yorkshire Pudding Express, and 1 Belgian Waffles. And remember that prize money. It is team and it is rider. So the big paydays come out by being in a winning team. But remember, those prizes spread down through the categories as well. Now, so our riders are continuing onwards. We've got a little bit of a pause here. I'm just going to bring in Emma. So we have talked about qualification a little bit here on the way through. And our riders have to qualify. Now, each month, the last Sunday of the month on Sunday Race Club is our prize money final. And as you can see, we are here on the Alula Heritage Climb finish it here. And we have what is a course that we used on race number 4. So the experience of racing race number 4 is important, isn't it? But what is also important is that qualification. And the qualifying races are 1, 2, 3, sometimes 4, as we've got in this month in July. But it's not just about where you finish, is it?
No, it's not. So to qualify, you need 2 out of 4 of the races, but you need verified results because it's only the verified results of the 2 out of the 4 that count. So you could race 4 out of 4, but not have your results verified. And there are reasons for that. So again, so important, as we've spoken about in the qualifying races, to read the race manual and the technical guides because things are really important. So dual recording is mandatory for all riders wanting to qualify, and it needs to be submitted immediately after the qualifying race. The file has got to be a fit file, and there are some real technical things here that catch people out. Dual recording has got to include an alternative source of power, not just the trainer, as well as heart rate and cadence. And we really strongly recommend that you delete all devices from your head unit, other than the one you are using for your secondary power, because those little head units have a terrible knack of pairing to your trainer accidentally, and that will invalidate the results for the secondary data and dual recording that you're sending through.
So really key is to have your turbo trainer, which is a smart turbo trainer running on MyWhoosh. That will record the power, the gameplay that you're watching, so you can see the power that's shown on the screen. That is the primary source, and that is what gives the feel to the racing. It's what the recording of your heart rate is on and everything else. But then most people will use maybe a power crank or use a power meter on their left-hand crank, maybe a set of power pedals on there, and that then needs to go to Garmin Wahoo or similar head unit, recording unit, could be a Garmin watch, but it has to be a fit file that comes through, Emma, then. So that's the format it needs to go in, a bit like you get a JPEG for an image or a Excel for a spreadsheet. It's the same thing. It is coming through in a fit file, and that is so that with all these results in, the system can work through, and that verification process starts really early on, doesn't it? It's not just about what you can do afterwards, it's what you can do before. So things like making sure that you've got your weight in there, you've got the right height in there, that it's all accurate because are checked. It's not just AI, as we know that they use. There's also a team behind the scenes checking everybody.
Yeah, and let us remember, Matt, this is about ensuring fair and transparent racing, and that is what is really key. And the main 2 reasons that people will not get a verified result is A, failing to submit that secondary submission, or B, having multiple devices detected in the file that they send through. So those 2 things are really, really important. And really, that's about getting everything prepped before you get on the bike.
It is. So preparation is key, just like you would see in any discipline, particularly when we're racing for prize money as we are in the final. It's really important that we keep it fair for everybody, and that is true whether it's our first category riders you see on the right hand side of the screen or on the left hand side of the screen, our third category riders, and seeing a real mix of riders. And interesting, at Londano at the moment, one of the riders I thought would be right up there in the mix, not up on the front of the screens, just taking a little bit of a check. Mamba just on his way through there, Efrain Mamba just in with Primero at the moment, Opego in the mix, and you can just see these riders working really hard. Ahmed Al Hassani at the moment, just behind Gerald Coking, that you can see the distance difference in third to first category. So irrespective of what your race category is, there is somebody to race against. It brilliant, because if, like me, you're definitely an expert. So basically, the definition, because we're on the English feed, of an expert is a drip under pressure. It is literally a has been and a drip under pressure. So a spurt is a drip under pressure, and an X is a has been. So I'm definitely in that category. I have to say, there's somebody to race against. And that's what makes it great fun, because you're racing against people. And we all love to race. We all love to be beating people. And you can see this third category group here. There's some real names in here who we see time and time again. Arago's in here, the two Londonos, Jefferson and Julian in here, Daniel Gomez in here, Andreas in there as well. In our second category racing, people like Hassan Sultan, who's always up in the mix, Will Cornish, David Milano, all battling it out on the left-hand side of your screen. Now, right-hand side of the screen, I think we're just seeing another bit of a move here. It is Michael Knudsen has decided that a little bit of a truce we were seeing with things just taking it a little bit steady is coming in to an end. So let's see who's going to take this on. We're currently at 20 kilometers. This is the rolling section between our second category climb and the third of our really sort of measured climbs. The third of our measured climbs starting at 27.7K, and that is not categorized, but it is a pretty big hill, and that I think could be a trigger point because it's the penultimate climb which has a real sort of serious measurement on there, Emma.
It is. So that third climb on the course today is only 52 metres and just shy of 2%, but it does allow a push on the legs and would be a perfect place to attack off this front group before the final climb of the day, where we're really going to see the 1, 2, 3 play out.
Well, that's going to be really interesting, isn't it? I think getting those trigger points is key. Now, let's go back to a little bit of a story we seen earlier on. Saeed Safrazad had gone with our two leaders, chased down two of our early leaders, but then blew. At the moment, he is currently now about 500 meters behind our leaders. Vink, Mr. X100, on the right of your screen at the moment with SS tucked in there. The teammate of Mr. X100 and Saeed Safrazad off the back of this group, and the gap is still 20 seconds to Van den Eyck. Hurt is going to be 21 to Mitch Ferry, but behind him, nearly 2 minutes to Tim Cutler and over 2.5 minutes to Oliver Simmers. And that should mean coming into the climb, that position is going to be secure. So it's now about riding to his limit, riding at the pace, and then making sure he's got enough to get back up the climb.
Yeah, and sometimes and some days in the race, when it's not your own individual race, you've still got to pull out a really big effort for the team. And that's exactly what he's doing there, by really pushing on as hard as possible to get a really strong position for the team.
And I think that team strength is showing today. We saw, as we've come through some of our segments, how we've got the Belgian Waffles team looking good and the Pavlovas team looking good, and the Express team, the Express team, and the UAE Clan team looking good. But all the way through the race, that has whittled down. We've seen teams go by the wayside. And it's no surprise, really, based on their results, that we are seeing the UAE Clan team right up and in the mix, because they've not been outside the top two. They've got 3 wins and a second place now. We're going to get another check on this because we're coming in to 22.5K, which means that we're nearly at the end of segment number 5. So our riders are on the way through here. Let's see who's going to figure in those results, and we're looking for those team names as much as we're looking for those individual riders in our top 8. And as you can see, 3 Clan team riders in there: SS, Popovic, Mr. X100. We have 3 riders from the Pavlova squad in the front 8. But interestingly, riders who've been distanced are now moving quicker. So explain to us, Emma. We saw our 8 riders come through, but now they are spread out here because we're seeing some real different times coming through.
We are, and that's really, really interesting because it's the first time we've seen that this race, Matt. Normally, the front group have been the ones setting the fastest pace, but I've been watching the heart rates, and actually that front group heart rates have all dropped about 20 beats in the last 5 minutes. They've been sitting up, and whilst it doesn't look like to us from the power they're putting out, they're sitting up, but for them it's been a very steady pace, and I think that's represented in segment 5 here. So over that 3.5k, what we're seeing is that the fastest times are not being set by the fastest group. They're being set by the riders chasing that group behind them. So Mir coming through for Yorkshire Pudding Express in 4:34. We've got a Belgian waffle rider, Bart van den Eyck, coming through as well. Lionel Vajassin from Yorkshire Pudding. Mitch Ferry then coming through again for Yorkshire Pudding Express. SS from the UAE Clan team, who was our previous fastest rider. So our fastest front group currently in 5th place and down, and the fastest 4 riders are chasing.
Well, that's interesting. So the pace picking up behind our leaders, and the leaders are going to be able to see that. They came up on our screen, and a lot of our riders with multiple screens running so that they can see exactly what's happening, so that they can see what our riders are doing. And that is really, really important for our riders. They've got to keep an eye on what all of our riders are doing, because if they don't, what will happen is they could get caught back, and then all that work that they put in earlier on has come to nothing. We do see that time and time again now. Just seeing Ollie Jones on the offensive here. So look at this. All of a sudden, Jones is heading up the road here. He's been incredibly quiet for Ollie Jones. Jones normally an aggressive, fast rider, and definitely is motoring now. So Jones, 7.5 watts per kilo. SS is answering this, 7.6 watts per kilo, but starting to drop back. And this looks to me like they're starting to put the pressure on. Remember, at 27.7, we'll be on our penultimate climb. At 24.5k at the moment, we're seeing Ollie Jones just trying to soften up the opposition with SS behind. Really are working hard here. He's trying to bridge across. He's likely to sit on Ollie Jones and then let the rest of his team come up to them. Pablo Popovic is helping here. He's in 3rd place at the moment. And you can see as these riders continue to push, I think Jones just watching the screens thinking, don't want to get caught back. I don't want to see people like Vajassin coming up here, Mayer coming up. They're very quick riders. We don't want to see Safazai coming back to the group. And I think that is really key here. So Jones at the moment really are pushing on. They're chasing a group behind, will want to close him down, but he's opened a gap as he takes that turn. But SS makes the junction, and now Ollie Jones has company. But can SS stay with Ollie Jones? We saw Saeed Safrazad mark out a move for the UAE clan team and then get in trouble. And are we seeing here Ollie Jones drawing out SS, making him work? And look at the gap now on the right hand side of your screen. Then he starts to struggle because he's worked to get in there, and making that catch and getting tucked into the draft is really, really tricky. So looks to me, as we come into 25.5k to go, that we have got a race on here on the Sunday Race Club, the prize money final. So certainly it looks to me like this is going to be key. So let's see. We've got Ollie Jones leading at the moment here on the Sunday Race Club behind SS, leading the chase with Pablo Popovic and Mr. X103 riders from the UAE clan team chasing hard behind. You can just see, though, that Jones is coming back into sight again. We're just about at 26. Here we go, 26 kilometers done. Ollie Jones ticking at 6.2 watts per kilo. Behind SS is working hard. He is solo and just trying to push himself back up into the mix. And then behind, Knudsen, Popovic, Graves, Mr. X100, Stefan Van Ace, all in the mix. Phil Graves is sat in there. Michael Vink is in there. Then it's a drop back down to Vujassin. Apologies, Lionel. And he just is at the moment distanced by this leading group, but he is moving quickly, as we saw on our split times as he came through. 3rd fastest time at the last split for the Yorkshire Pudding Expressman. And Mitch Ferry also moving very quickly as this race has progressed. So let's see who is going to be able to take this. Ollie Jones on the attack, looking to open the space, looking to keep the speed high. 5 seconds back to SS, 6 back to Popovic, 8 to X100. Then we go back to Phil Graves, for example, about 12 seconds down on our race leader, and the response has to come. The riders really need to make a move. SS currently in 2nd place on the right-hand side of your screen. You can just see he's working really hard, but he's not making the catch. And it's kind of like you've got to really do this quickly, get on and sit on, or relax, get back to the pack and rely on that group to pull you across. Just sitting 50, 60 meters behind, you're not getting any benefit of sitting on the group, and all that is happening is you're just basically burning energy. And I think we've just seen that. We've just seen SS sit back up to go back towards the group. So I think we're going to see SS starting to drop back into the group, and the chasing riders behind start to close that gap down. Now, Ollie Jones leading this race out at the moment, looking very strong. 450 watts, heart rate 174. He is working hard at the moment. So at the moment, you can just see Ollie Jones is really pushing on here. Now we're going to go into our next segment. This is at 27.5 kilometers. And Emma, I think this is another of our long segments, isn't it?
It is. In fact, this is the first of our 2 5K segments. So segment 6 today is starts at 27.5k, takes us through to 32.5k. And as a 5k segment starts on a bit of an uphill climb, and we can see that with the gradient in front of us just sat at 1% at the moment. And then as we roll through towards the end, we'll see it move downhill. So an uphill with a downhill segment over the 5k.
And that's going to be really interesting to watch because we are on the climb. So at 27.7, we hit the main climb and we start to climb. It basically ramps up. And the steepest segments of this climb, this is not a categorized climb, but it's going to be enough to test the rider's legs, comes towards the end. Now, Michael Vink is making a move across here. So Vink, teammate of Jones on the Danish Pavlova squad, starting to move. Knudson's in third place here, patrolling the front of the group. So at the moment, Vink and Jones, they were the 1-2, with Vink leading Jones home as they came in last time on our last qualifier, which was on this course, are starting to put the pressure on. They're starting to open the gap. So Ollie Jones, Michael Vink, then it's SS, then Phil Graves, Michael Knudsen, Mr. X100, Stefan Van Ees, Pablo Popovic. I think we are going to see this becoming a very tight race indeed as we go on to those slopes. The gaps at the moment, they're fractions of a second as they come through with Lionel Vijassin, Vidal Mayer and co. inside a minute behind our leading group. So the gap at one stage between the leaders and the chasers was over 2 minutes because the chasers have just been mission 1. Mission 2, Mission 3, and every other mission in between at the moment is for them to just get back on. They can sit at a smooth pace, and they are trying to close down our leaders. But the lead is splitting with Jones and Vink at the moment, 5 seconds clear of that chasing group behind. And I think this upping in pace could put paid to the chances of Vijassin and co, who are a little bit further back. So, Mr. X100 on the front, winding up the chase here, looking to close this down, and it's now at 3 seconds. So, Mr. X100, the road captain for the UAE clan team, using that experience on the race, using that leadership to say, right, now is the time. We can see them. Let's close them down. We put the work in now. We're going to be coming into the climb. And remember, of course, as you go up a climb, the physical distance will decrease, even though the time gap is the same. As you go over the other side, it's the opposite. So you need to make the catch on the uphill section, because if you don't, on the downhill section, the gap will open and any benefit of being in the draft will be mitigated completely.
Yeah, and it's really interesting watching those tactics there, Matt, because Mr. X100 waited for Vink and Jones to sit up before he put his attack in. He just let them ride off at 7, 8 watts per kilo and waited till they dropped back to 5, knowing that was going to happen. And then he put the power down and started putting out 7 watts per kilo himself.
And that is smart riding. It also means knowing the course, knowing the platform, riding on MyWhoosh. Don't forget you can download MyWhoosh on your PC now. Go to www.mywhoosh.com. Make sure you download it on there. Of course, you can still do it on your Apple iPhone, laptop. You can do it on a MacBook. You can do it on pretty much anything these days. And get that game downloaded. Come and join us on a ride, on a MyWhooshers ride, on a Battle the Bot ride. Get those courses dialed. Get the practice knowing how to ride in and out. The gap has gone. Our leaders caught. Brilliant riding there by the team. And look at the numbers now. 2.5 and 3 watts per kilo. They go out for a Sunday club run.
Yeah, they've sat right up now. That catch has been made, and I think actually that cat and mouse game that's going on at the front now is actually letting that back group catch up. So I think we're going to see the times come down to the gaps behind unless this group really start pushing on.
Oh, really interesting to see that we've got 4 chasing riders. They were in 1s and 2s behind. but the chasing riders are working hard. Now, Vink still on this climb. He's at 30.6k and kicking out some massive watts here as he goes up the climb. Graves quickly onto him here. Now, Phil Graves, we haven't seen anything of Phil Graves. He goes up on the front. Michael Vink is there. Mr. X100 is like, not having that. I didn't do all that work for you just to ride off as we get to the top of the climb. They come up and over and they're going to start into this descent. As Emma said, it is an uphill and downhill segment, which is really great info because it shows you why they were working to close that and are still working to keep those gaps down. Now, interestingly, shows you the difference. Our riders just coming into this segment in the second category competition and a lot of riders in that pack. So right hand side of your screen in the yellow, first category riders, the leaders of the race. Left hand side of your screen, you can see that we have our second category riders who are there and racing for that second category win. Prizes in all of our categories, and great to see just how strong those riders are. Interestingly, Alan McGurr in there, Ryan Giuliano in that group as well. And they've caught back Jakob Björklund, who's one of our first category riders. He's the yellow jersey mixed in on the left of your screen. But I think that second category race is going to be really interesting. Don't forget, you can catch up with all of those results on the MyWhoosh.com website. So it's www.mywhoosh.com. Once you go on there, click onto the results, you'll see that the results we see on the screen, they are live. Then at the end of the race, it goes to unofficial, and then they are verified and they become official. So all the results, basically either the live race now or the official results that have been verified coming into the finals. Naomi, you were just keeping an eye on the screens there.
I was counting how many riders were in that lead group for the category 2. 13 by my count. So that is going to be some race in the latter stages of today.
And that's what part of the appeal is, isn't it? The 13 riders to battle against. There's always somebody to battle. And those 13 riders, remember, are going to be moving faster because they're in a big group, and that is going to be helping them out. Now, let's take a little bit of a look back at the front of the Category 1 race. We have the group of riders, basically 8 riders all together. But behind, it's now 41 seconds to Lionel Vujassin, to Nair and Co, who are chasing this group. So here we go. Our riders are going to come through the finish of this segment. This is a segment that takes us from 27.5k to 32.5 kilometers. And Emma, interesting to see it's all kind of come back together again after all that.
It has, hasn't it? And I think we saw some quite hot action to start with, but it's slowed down. So Van Elst for the Belgian Waffles takes us through that segment there in 6.6 minutes 47 seconds, followed by Popovic from the UAE clan team, Philip Graves, Yorkshire Pudding Express, Mr. X100 in 4th from the UAE clan team, Knutson from Danish Pavlovas, followed by Vink, Danish Pavlovas, followed by SS for the UAE clan team in 7th.
And Ollie Jones going through there was the leader of the race, who was caught back, and that's why he's 12 seconds down. But the chasers are about to hit that line now. Here they come. And this time round, because of that chase back to close down Ollie Jones, they are 20 seconds. I repeat that, 20 seconds down on the race leaders through that 5K segment. And that is all to do with the fastest time. So that's the pace of the Belgian Waffles rider Van Ace, the UAE clan team riders Popovic, Mr. X100 and SS, and of course the Pavlova riders Knudsen, Vink and Jones, and Phil Graves from the Yorkshire Pudding Express closing down Jones. But that close down, that chaser action meant that they were quick, 20 seconds quicker, and that is a very, very big difference. Now, back to the front of the race again, another push on here. Knudsen and Graves starting to wind it up. They've got Van Aist on their wheels. They're currently at 33.6k. There's a little kicker on the way in towards the main climb, and I think this is just going to be really interesting to see who's paying attention, who is being attentive to the racing here, because if they get this section wrong, the lead into the climb will have to be done chasing really, really hard. That is tough because that is not going to help these riders if they put too much energy in. A little bit further back, look at this group. As Emma said, 13 riders in our second category group. There's a big mix of riders and they are working, taking turns on the front at the moment. I think that almost collegiate approach is not going to work once they come into that final climb, where it is going to be every man for himself on that final climb. And Emma, what would your tactics be if you were in our group 2 on the way through here, category 2 riders?
Well, I think I would be very comfortable in that group of 13 riders in Cat 2 if I knew I was a strong climber. Because actually, if I'm a strong climber on that final climb with 6.2k of climbing at the end of this race, that's when I would be able to make a break from this group, and I'd know I'd be able to substantiate it. The challenge would be if you're in that group and you know there are strong climbers in there and you're not one of them.
Well, yeah, indeed. And it is a particular climbing style you're going to need. We've just seen Alan McGurr going on the offensive here. He can see that he's got Simmons in front of McGurr at 500 plus watts, nearly 550 watts. Alan McGurr, really strong rider. We've seen him improve time and time again, racing in our category 2 racing. And Alan, of course, taking the win in category 2 on qualifier number 1. He's being chased by Hassan Al-Ramethri at the moment, and Hassan, another of our fast riders, he took the win last time out in category 2. So a rider who has taken the first qualifying race win on the front, a rider who's at the last qualifying race win chasing behind. We're in with Hassan, but over the top of him, I think that is going to be Oviedo, who goes in and through, and Jose Oviedo, 3rd, 4th, and 5th in qualifiers, 3, 2, and 1. Not racing last time out. And Jose riding for that Team Italy B. Quickly onto that group. Team Italy B. Caligula, Moreno, Oviedo. 3 very, very strong riders. And all the riders have got top 5 rides this qualifying rounds. So that shows you just how strong they are. We're just in with Giuliano at the moment. And now Giuliano riding for the Climbers squad, 6th last time around, but he's after some real class acts here. In McGurr, in Oviedo, in Al-Ramethri. And the question will be, in my mind, if I was in that chasing group, can I get away with these 3 strong riders? Because that's where I'd want to be. I'd want to be right on the front. I want to be in that group, and I would want to be able to take that away. Meanwhile, in the race of the front of the category 1 riders, you can see the aggression is on again. We are starting to see attack after attack. We're at 35.7k. Another of our slight kickers is on the run in. Push on the power, but I think it's all been neutralized again. Meanwhile, on the left of your screen, our second category riders and Hassan Al-Ramethri, Jose Oviedo, really working hard here to distance the rest of that group. McGurr in the mix as well. So 3 really strong riders. And I think it's Liam Somerville who is leading the chase behind. And that is for the DS team. So that's going to be really interesting to watch. Now, our leaders currently onto the boardwalk bridge and just making the way in and across the lake. Now, this means we are going to be hitting that climb very shortly indeed. We're at 36.2k. And although it's been rising, remember it is at, I think it's 36.8 that we are actually going to take on the climb proper. And that is when we start. And that is when we're going to see those big, big kicks, I suspect. Interesting to look at the time gaps. All of this attacking, this hesitating, this looking at each other. Time gap from Vujasin down to these leading riders, 28 seconds at the moment. He has really pushed on with Mayer, with Ferry, with Cutler. They are looking to pull this group back. And this team competition, it's not just about number 1, it's 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not over by any stretch of the imagination. And that climb is going to be critical, isn't it, Emma?
It is, and it wasn't that long ago. It was 47 seconds back to that chasing group. So they are closing in, and probably more to do with the fact that this group at the front are yo-yoing in terms of going up and down, attacking each other.
Well, our group on the front, are trying to push, trying to keep away, then easing off. It's creating that yo-yo effect that Emma's talking about, and that is going to be interesting to see whether this pure power that these race leaders have is going to come into effect at the front of the race, or whether or not they're going to get pulled back. Okay, back with the leaders of category 2.
Yeah, and this front group are working really, really hard to try and form a breakaway here. You know, pushing 5 watts per kilo and sitting with some pretty high heart rates and trying to create that gap. And that gap was 7 seconds last time we were with them, and it's now out to 11.
Well, the riders are starting to push here. You can just see that the leaders know they're coming on to our big climb. This is tough stuff, though, because this has got a lot of the climbing that we've done on the entire course coming on this last climb as they go up here. I think it's 420 some meters, Emma, if I'm right.
Yeah, 425 meters of climbing over a 6.2k. On average, 6.8%, but that's really deceptive because some of this climbing gradient is in double figures because, as you've talked about earlier, Matt, it's quite a stepped climb.
It is indeed. So we describe steps as rises and treads. A tread is where you stand on it or tread on the step. A riser is the climbing part of a set of steps. Attacking on a riser is a key move. Now, interesting to see Michael Knudsen has gone hard here. He put in 8 watts per kilo. He's been pulled back here by SS, who's gone across the gap. So that UAE clan team are looking to close it down. Now, Knudsen's been relatively quiet for Michael Knudsen. We've seen him on the attack before, but this Danish Pavlova squad are wanting those top prize money. They don't want to give this to the UAE clan team. And interestingly, Mitch Ferry is currently leading the chasing group behind, doing the work on the front, trying to close down. So the Yorkshire Pudding Express are getting some help coming up behind in the shape of Vujasin, in the shape of Ferry. They are going to want to close that gap down. Question will be, can they get there in time? These 4 riders doing an amazing shift to get back. And the gap between the riders now is 400 meters max, probably near 350 meters from the 4 chasers to our leaders. So this is a serious bit of work being done by Mitch Ferry, Lionel Vujasin, Vidal Mayer, and Bart van den Eekhout. They are in danger, I think, of making contact with the leading group. The question will be, have they got something left in the tank after this massive chase down on our race leaders? The leaders take the right-hand turn. Now it's going to swing in and up, and the first of those big gradients are about to kick in. We come in to our segment start at 38.9k. We come around the left bend. Watch what this road does. It is going to start to ramp, and as we sweep in to the right, we're going to come in. We're just coming on to the first of our ramps, so the first of the really steep sections. It's almost a 90-degree bend on our screens in terms of profile. That is where we're coming into the kicker, and we need to see where they are going to go.
Yeah, and that start of that kicker there is the beginning of our final segment today. That final 5k segment starting at 38.9 and going to 43.9, finishing 1.1k before the line.
And that is key. 1.1k. Now that final 1.1k, it stepped, and the last 100 meters are a real wall into the climb. You can see the finishing gantry above. Now, right hand side of your screen, our race leaders are coming in to our next step, onto our next riser very shortly. Currently on the tread section, that is going to crack up. Watch the numbers in the orange box. It's going to turn to red as those gradients increase. Top right-hand side of your screen, the map view has the 5.2 currently, 5.3, 5.4, 5.5. As it gains the gradient, it will go to double figures, and this is where we see who's struggling. SS at the moment, 4 seconds down. Is he in trouble, or is he able to push back on? He's at 6.4 watts per kilo. I would suggest he's got the power to come back. Goes more than 2 to 4 seconds. Means the rider's really in trouble. Stefan van Ace now winding on the front, but who's going to put in a kick? Is anybody going to try and take this away as we come on to the steep sections? These riders, I think they're still probing. They're still seeing who's feeling strong today. Mr. X100 just keeping that pace high. Knudsen comes up on his right shoulder, but doesn't attack, doesn't go over the top here. It's not a massive attack. Those numbers are still relatively low in terms of watts per kilo, but damage is definitely being done. SS at 4 seconds back. But Emma's talked about momentum, and that is key on this climb, isn't it? And sometimes you will see people just drop back a little bit to give themselves some space.
Yeah, and momentum and cadence, absolutely essential on this climb, because as it rises really steeply and then settles, actually really coming into the steep sections, you can use the flatter sections to gain momentum, and that will carry you up the climb faster for the same effort.
So that momentum is key role in the course. And Emma and I were reflecting at the end of the last qualifier, which was on this self-same course, about the differences in style. And Emma really did. You said that been through the descent and carrying the pace up the climb, you can really use that pace. And Knudsen is doing that absolutely superb. He's on the front, on the right of your screen, 500 watts, 10% slope. Jones is going up there. Vink is going with him. And at the moment, the SS Pablo Popovic and Mr. X100 trio on that UAE clan team are in trouble now because the gaps are starting to open and Mr. X100 is having to lead his team in to the leading duo here. So Jones, Knudsen, Fink, Van Est, Mr. X100. They are the leading 5 riders that you see on your screen, and the gaps have opened. Graves at 2 seconds, Popovic at 4. SS has gone 28 seconds down, and you can see behind the chasers are coming on to those steeper sections, and those pace, the speed is changing as they go over the top. Oh, these are doing 41k an hour, 20 kph for our chasers who are on the steep section.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, Matt, isn't it? Because I'm just looking at the numbers on the screen here, and I think the chasers have gone from a 300-metre gap to a 200-metre gap since they've got onto this climb.
They have, but that time gap is remaining the same. And this is what we talk about, this difference as you go onto a steep section because you're riding slow. The physical distance between you can diminish even though the time gap stays the same. Now, look at this. Mr. X100 is just coming over the top here. He came in at about 12 watts per kilo, but he's taken that power back off, which might be dangerous. He's now at 9 watts per kilo, trying to pull back Jones. I think Jones and Knudsen are putting another big dig in. It's level slightly here, but we kick straight back in again. You can see it rising round to the right-hand side at 8.8%. The rider's putting out over 8 watts per kilo here. So Mr. X100 with Michael Vink and Ollie Jones. Michael Knudsen's there. Stefan Van Elst is in. Popovic, Graves, and Vujacid all left chasing now with Popovic and Graves are dropping down. And I think SS is well and truly gone pot because I think he's been passed by our chasing group. Vink is on the front with a fractional gap, and you can see behind 4 riders in close attendance, but Vink is pushing on here. Michael Vink, who took victory last time out by far and away, his best qualifying result. But look at the chase, it's still on behind. Knudsen is coming. Knudsen, his best result in qualifying, a 3rd place. Can he improve on that today? Can he take away top spot? He'd dearly love to take that prize money, I'm sure, wouldn't we all? And it's going to be interesting to see who can take away the prizes here on MyWhoosh. Who is going to have the power as we get to the top of the climb? We're currently at 41.8k of our 45 kilometers of racing here in the men's prize money final on MyWhoosh on the Sunday Race Club Live with me, Matt Payne, and Emma Martin. We are backed up, of course, by all of the team on broadcast at MyWhoosh. We want to say a big thank you to them, enabling us to put words to the action because this is some action. Mr. X100 now, he pushes up on the side. These 5 riders, there's nothing to choose. And Pablo Popovic currently at 3 seconds. He's almost in danger of pushing back into this group. I think Graves is well gone now at 15 seconds. But look at Popovic. He is recut. Can he get onto the back of Knudsen, who is now being trailed off the group after being on the front as Mr. X100 rolls over the top? And I think this is technique as much as it is power at the moment. You can see Van Ays come through. He carried momentum really well through there as we come into the tunnel. So going to be close as we come into our finish. 5 riders clear of Pablo Popovic leading the chase. In the blue, Mr. X100 has sat in the middle of all 5 riders here. And now Knudsen goes again, 6.1 watts per kilo. He eases a touch. Mr. X100 goes over the top. But there's nothing to choose between them. Ollie Jones starts to put a dig in. But I think these legs are tired. That constant attacking and coming back, not being able to sit at a regular rhythm in this our prize money final is taking its toll. So Stefan Van Eest at the moment is working hard on the front of the group. Can he stay clear? Knudsen, Jones, Vink, all in the mix with Mr. X100. They are our 5 leading riders. Behind, they are in 1s and 2s. Popovic at 19 seconds, nearly at a minute. Graves, you've got Vujacin just over a minute. And I think a lot of the hard work for some of these riders in that early leading group is going to come to nothing as the chasers smoothly came up I think they're going to come past, but I don't think they're going to catch this top 5 who seem to have the race sewn up. But the question will be, in what order are they going to come across the line? Who has that killer final punch as they come over the top? We're going to hit a downhill section in a moment, and this really does drop down here. Minus 2.8%. It allows you to pick up pace, pick up speed, 56 kilometers an hour, over 30 miles an hour, back up into the climb. That speed is scrubbed off very quickly, and now it's about the pace up this hillside here. In the tunnel, 6.7%, and the 5 are still together.
They are, and it's really interesting. I was just watching Mr. X100 there use some momentum on the flat to come through and go over the group. A really, really great use of technique, and technique is just as important here, Matt, particularly when you're starting to tire in the last few K of a race.
And we are into the last few K. In fact, we're into the last meters here, because we are at what is fast approaching 1,400, if not 1,300 meters to go as these riders rocket on now. Michael Vink at 8 watts per kilo. We were riding along. We saw them at 2.3s on the base on the run into this climb, but now there's no chance to get your recovery, to get that heart rate down. These riders are continuing to push. Mr. X100's heart rate now up at 157. He's normally cool as a cucumber. That heart rate is rocketing here as they come up. Who's got the power, though, to go clear? Can anybody break away? And remember, the final section to the line is a heartbreaking uphill. We're coming into the end of the segment. This is going to give us a real indication on heart rate of who is working hard. So here we go.
Yeah, so Mr. X100 leading through that 5K segment in 9 minutes and 15 seconds with an average watts per kilo of 6 watts per kilo, followed by Ollie Jones, Danish Pavlovas, Knudsen from the Pavlovas, and Vink from the Pavlovas team as well in second, third and fourth.
Not a lot to choose between any of those riders in the top section there. And for me, what's really interesting, 5.8 to 6.2, only 0.4 of a watt per kilo to choose between these riders. Mr. X100 leading them up, but very quickly. The riders mob around the sides there. And now Van East has got a little bit of work to do to get back in with them. So we take a little bit of a drop down, 600, nearly 500 meters left of this course. We've got another kicker coming in now. Mr. X100 on the front. Knudsen goes up to 10 watts per kilo, 11 watts per kilo. Knudsen puts his attack in on this steep section. How many times can he do this? He's going to come into the tunnel. We've got to pop out the other side, but look at Jones. Jones comes up 14 watts per kilo. It's 14 watts per kilo coming out of Knudsen. They've got to answer this. We're seeing the big numbers coming out now. Jones is at 10.9. Who can answer this? They are all answering it. There is nothing to choose between them. I remember our last ramp up is a steep one, but we've got to run in. We're on 200 meters to go. This dip is about carrying the pace. Ollie Jones has got the race lead. The gantry is coming. Is it going to be Jones? Jones comes through. It's going to be tight as we come into the finish. I think we're going to see Jones coming through in that race lead, with Knudsen and Vink coming through faster than we could blink on the way through. 1.526 seconds back was Knudsen, then it was Vink, then it was Mr. X100, and even with my appalling maths, I think we can work out that the Danish Pavlova squad are going to take that team title subject to verification. What a ride. You've got to feel for Mr. X100. He was putting in the pressure. He had his teammates around him, went all over the place with Jones, Knudsen, and Vink. A triumvirate of talent, to quote the great Hugh Porter. What a result there for the Pavlova squad. 3 riders in the race, 3 riders in the top 3. Victory going to Ollie Jones, Michael Knudsen in second, Michael Vink in third, Mr. X100 in fourth place for the UAE clan team, and Stefan Van Eest in sixth place. Now, it's in fifth place, it's going to be sixth for Pablo Popovic, and Phil Graves should be coming up this final slope in for seventh. Vujasin at 31 seconds back. Now, this is about those extra places in that team competition, because it is incredibly tight behind our leaders here. So at the moment, Vujasin just about to drop in here. He's got SS behind. Now, remember, the UAE clan team, they're done and dusted in terms of the team competition, but those individual prizes are at stake. And remember, the prize money fight always key. And that looked incredibly close there between Vujasin and SS. I think SS just taking it on the line, and look at the difference. It was fractions. It was down to, it's going to be, I think, oh, look at that, 400ths of a second between SS and Vujasin. So your top 10, Ollie Jones taking a top spot at the moment. Behind him, you've got the chase from Michael Knudsen and Michael Vink, the top three in there. Mr. X100 in fourth place. In fifth place, Stefan van Esten. In sixth position, Pablo Popovic. Seventh, the Yorkshire Pudding Express rider Phil Graves. Then it is UAE Clan Team rider SS. Then Lionel Vujasin from the Yorkshire Pudding Express as well. Belgian Waffles get their second counter in Bart van den Inckhout, but the Yorkshire Pudding Express comes in 11th place there for Mitch Ferry. So that should mean, subject to confirmation, that we have got Pavlova in 1. We are going to have UAE Clan Team in 2 and the Yorkshire Pudding Express in 3. Don't me on that, as Emma will quite rightly tell you. It is all about that verification. So those results live at the moment, they'll go to unofficial and then to official. Now, behind, the chase is on for the top rider in our competition in terms of our second category riders, and great to be able to see this competition unfold in all our categories. Hassan Al-Rumesri now coming into the tunnels. He's at 2.5 kilometers to go, and you can just see there's a real mix of riders behind. So at the moment, it's Al-Rumesri in 1, Moreno in 2, Mr. G in 3, Dexter Albelo in 4 in that second category competition. So that group of 13, Emma, whittled down to 1s and 2s.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's looking as though that attack that we were witnessing about 8 or 9k ago has really paid dividends, because Hassan here really in the lead now with a bit of a gap of around, I'm looking at the numbers, around 30 seconds back to second place.
And Hassan really did put a big dig in. He went clear, he knew what to do. And by riding these courses, that is absolutely key. The more you ride on the platform, the more that you race on the platform, the more you are going to find exactly how and where and when to put the pressure and put the power on. But amazing race here today. And after that, a really aggressive start where we saw people attacking and coming back and attacking and coming back. It looked to me like it settled down a little bit on the front, allowing those chases to come back, Emma. But then we saw that explosion as we hit the climbs and that final run into the finish line.
Yeah, and it would have been a very dangerous tactic, Matt, in that Category 2 race to take all 13 riders in that lead group into the bottom of this climb and rely on the bottom of the climb to the top of the climb to make the 1, 2, 3. You know, I wouldn't have been comfortable taking 12 other riders in with me. 4 or 5, maybe. 12, no thank you.
Well, I must admit, I like the profile of this last climb. Emery's definitely one of those riders. I think you like to sit at a rhythm. You can climb really strongly because you just sit at that pace and you just hold that pace the way. Whereas for me, it's a sprint, recover, sprint, recover, sprint, recover. That is key, and that is what this climb does on this platform. I think what we're going to see though, when we move to different climbs, if we are, say, on the Jebel Hafid, it would suit a more non-explosive climb. And I think that's where you can just sit and put the power down. Here, you look at those top 3 riders, Knudsen, Vink, and co. The Pavlova squad are aggressive. They attack. They put loads of power in. They know how to ride the platform. And it does mean they can take on the UAE Clan Team, who, let's face it, have been incredibly strong all the way through this month of races, of qualifiers and into the final.
Yeah, and you're right, Matt. This final climb really is an attack, recover, or really tactically, as we saw Mr. X100 doing there, attacking on the flat to take the momentum into the climb. So it's quite a technical climb, but you are right. I would much rather sit tapping 3.5 to 4 watts per kilo up a 20-minute effort and just keep at one pace. But different riders, different styles, ride the same course in a different way. And you've got to know what type of rider you are and how to play to your strengths to really get the best for you and your team on a race course.
And I think that for me is a key here today. We are seeing these riders working hard on the way into the finish, but this is all about making sure that you go in and ride it at your way of riding. And Hassan at the moment has the gap. There are riders behind him. We've got Jakob Björklund behind. We do have more riders coming through in the top positions on the way through, in between Hassan and the finish. And Hassan is still being chased by Johan Moreno, who's at the moment hitching a lift. But Saeed Safrazad just coming in and across the line here. So let's round out just the other side of the top 10. After Bart van den Eekhout, Mitch Ferry in 11th place, Vidal Mayer in 12th, Saeed Safrazad coming through in 13th position. I think it should be Cutler in 14th place, but we are watching the battle behind. So Cutler just on his way in to the line up the sprint. He goes, rolls up there. You can see carrying lots of pace at 60 km an hour over the line. But behind, Johan Moreno here is closing on Hassan Al-Ramethri. Al-Ramethri currently riding 9 seconds in front on a climb. It looks a short distance. It feels forever. 9 seconds on a climb. Give me a 9-second downhill, not a 9-second uphill anytime. But Johan Moreno is really trying to close in. So riders a little bit further down. Tim Cutler coming in 14th position. The Yorkshire Pudding Express now with 4 finishers home, as have the squad from the UAE clan team. Don't forget, of course, Pavlova only having 3 riders, but putting all 3 up at the top of the standing, with Jones, Knudsen, and Vink coming in and through. So great results. Don't forget, you can pick up all the results on the www.mywhoosh.com website. Go click on results. And that includes our second category riders. Remember, our second category riders, who will take away the prize money? Well, is it going to be Hassan? We're coming in to those cruel last 500 meters where you've got this 10% slope. You've then got to kick over the top. Behind Moreno is in. He's close, but I don't think he's going to be close enough at the moment, because he's currently sitting at, it's yo-yo in a little bit, 10 to 12 seconds, up to 19 at the moment. It could well be that Moreno is going to struggle here to close down on Hassan Al-Ramethri. It could well be victory for Hassan here. Moreno, though, is about to come into the tunnels. This is going to be close. So Hassan Al-Ramethri leading out our Category 2 riders, comes over the top. He's going to dip down. He's got that final kicker up in to the finish here. He's up to 66, 68 kilometers an hour. He's now going to carry this momentum, 70 kph. He really wants this. Look at the revs, though, 123 revs a minute. He's spinning faster than a hamster on a wheel as he comes in. He's going to kick now, and that final kick takes him to victory. Hassan Al-Ramethri is going to take away top spot in our second category competition, and I think he's going to come in 16th place overall, if I am correct. So a great ride. Johan Moreno comes in behind him. He's going to take second place for Team Italy B, and that team competition is really up for grabs, with 13 riders behind on the hill, all in contention for that team competition. So make sure you go on to www.mywhoosh.com and click on to the results page for all of those results. Unofficial, of course, until we get all of those results verified, at which point those big prize money prizes are going to be going out to our riders on there. Our men's competition has been amazing to put words to the action to. You can follow me, Matt Fixer Payne, on social media. It's at Biking Emma. And of course, make sure you go on to MyWhoosh on Instagram, on Facebook, and my_whoosh on Twitter. So our prize money race here at the end of July in the men's race is complete. We will be back for the women's race very shortly. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we'll catch up with you. See you then soon.